Okay, all right. Hello, everyone. Is my Hold on, let me turn that up. Okay, all right. Hello, everyone. So continuing on with my short webinar series for the week. Yesterday, I covered pretty much financial statements, and so one, thank you to everyone who viewed live and also watched the replay. Thank you to all those who have shared and commented. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, please go and watch that. That has learning about financial statements in accounting in general is it's a very dry subject. It's very boring, but when you're a small business owner, it is very important because accounting is the language of business, and there's so much great information that you can extract just from the financial statements. Like I said yesterday, they read like a story. They tell you a story, and they help you determine where money is missing, where transactions are duplicated, where things might be mistakenly recorded, errors. I mean, your financials tell you a lot, so it's important as a small business owner to look at that. Okay. Um, my name is Letitia A. Tugba. I am a CPA and the CEO of latcpafirm.com. Let's see, Today, what I'm going to be covering is bookkeeping best practices and tips, right? So that's what I guess that's what I'm covering today. All right. So let me go ahead and share my presentation and let's dive into it. Wonder if I can, okay, once you're live, you can't change that. I was trying to see if I could change it so that this is larger. Hopefully this might be larger for y'all than yesterday's presentation. When I reviewed it, the writing was really small. I apologize. I'm learning all of this technology stuff. I'm an accountant after all, but okay. So bookkeeping best practices and tips. All right. So tip number one, when it comes and again, just to rehearse why I'm doing this, tax season is upon us, right? Just a few more months and we'll be in January in 2025. And so when your books are out of order, when your books are incorrect, then your business tax return is also wrong as well. And so these are a few things that you can do right now. If you haven't been keeping up with your records or keeping up with your bookkeeping, these are some things that you can do either right now or for 2025 that can put you on the right track. Okay. So when it comes to bookkeeping, the best thing for you to do is to number one, set up a dedicated business bank account. So many times I see this a lot with sole proprietors, especially, or for those who have like 1099 contract income, and then they're just recording all their different 1099s on a Schedule C when they file their tax return. So what happens is that money is still going into their personal bank account, and then at tax time, they're having to filter through all of their bank statements, all of their personal bank statements, and then filter out their business transactions. And so just to avoid that, the best thing to do is to get a dedicated account that is just for your business income and expenses. Now, I know if you're in the startup phase, you're a new entrepreneur, you may not have revenue coming in. And so the way that you can fund a business bank account is to either self-fund it by taking money from your personal bank account and creating a business account and then depositing that money, and that's just your owner contribution to fund your business bank account, or to wait until you have revenue coming in and then have a bank account open already and then have that revenue deposited into that bank account. Um, Now let's see. When it comes to opening up a business bank account, it really depends on what bank you go to. Some banks have a lot of different requirements. Some are very simple. For me, I chose a local bank, and it was actually at the recommendation of a coworker that we were former coworkers. She started her own CPA firm, and then she told me that one of the local banks, it was just super easy. You just bring a copy of your EIN letter, the the letter of incorporation, the articles of incorporation from the state, and then $100, and you could open up a business bank account. It was literally that easy, and I just followed her advice and did that. And when I looked around at some of the other larger banks, they just had more requirements, or they had a larger deposit amount. Sometimes they require 1,000 down, 10,000 down. It just depends on the bank, right? But if you have all of your documents, opening a business bank account shouldn't be any issue, but it's important to have a dedicated business bank account. And it just makes calculating everything. It just makes finding all of your business transactions so much more easier at tax time when everything is flowing through one account. Okay. Now another thing, another tip in order to make sure that your books just stay organized and in order is to stay organized throughout the year. So another thing that I see with new entrepreneurs or new small business owners is that typically, and new, I mean like they've been in operations for 5 years or under, because it takes a few years. It takes a few years to kind of get every all of the kinks worked out and get your processes down and what have you. But another mistake that I see is all of their receipts just go into like a box, or they write it down on a legal pad, or they're doing it in an Excel spreadsheet, or what have you, and they just put it all somewhere and store it, but they never actually go through and organize things. And then tax season comes around, and then they're trying to do a full year of work in like a few days, which makes it super stressful. And so something that I advise clients or prospective clients to do is just to create a system that works for you, right? So create a system that is easy for you to follow and it's easy for you to be consistent with. And so something that I do personally is I have for all of my receipts, I have because my business is still new, I just have like an accordion file folder, and it's like less than $5 at Walmart. I mean, you can just go and spend like less than $5, $3 in order to buy something like this. I like to get the 13 pocket accordion file folders. And so each pocket, there's 12. Each pocket is for those 12, those are dedicated to a month in the year. And then that 13th pocket is going to be like the tax return for the business once I file it, and then any other important documents. Now, if there's permanent documents like your articles of incorporation, your EIN, that I keep in like a separate file for like all of my important permanent documents that I have to keep for the business. But if it's related to like taxes and bookkeeping, I try to separate it by year and by month. Okay. And again, if, say, for instance, you go to the store and you're not really good about keeping your receipts, you usually throw them away, then keep a folder inside your car and just put your receipt in there. And I know that with bookkeeping software, a lot of them allow you to sync your bank account or your credit card account so that all of those transactions automatically flow through and get posted to your bookkeeping account. However, if you're ever audited, the bank statement will not suffice for the audit. So that rolls into tip number 3. It's really important for you to keep your receipts, your invoices, bank and credit card statements, and to keep them for up to 6 years. And I'm just saying this from experience. Okay. So the bank sync that happens in like QuickBooks Online and Zero and Wave, that is for the convenience of you not having to record things manually. When I started bookkeeping, when I started working as an accountant over almost 11 years ago, we didn't have bank sync in our software. So every bill that came in, we had to manually enter it. I mean, it was all manual. Now with bank sync, it's already auto recorded, and then you can use AI to like mass record, like, or categorize, especially if you have QuickBooks and something that's much more comprehensive when it comes to accounting software. But the bank statement sync in your software will not suffice in audit. Okay. Whoever's going to come in as an auditor at the federal level and the state level, they're going to ask for receipts, because the bank statement or the credit card statement shows that a purchase was made for the business, but it's the receipts, the invoices, and the bills that really help the auditor to determine if that transaction was a legit business transaction or not, or if it's in the right category. And so a lot of times I see this mistake where, because a small business owner has bank sync in their bookkeeping software, they'll just trash all their receipts. They're like, "Oh, I mean, it's all right there, straight from the bank." And in audit, that it's not going to stand up. I mean, you're going to have a really time in audit there, if you do get audited. You'll have a really hard time because the backup is actually the receipt, not what's on the bank statement. Okay. Um, so make sure you do keep those, and then keep them up for up to 6 years. So the IRS can go back up to 6 years to perform an audit on your books. And then if you've ever received a penalty letter from the IRS, you'll know that typically the penalty letters come almost 2 to 3 years after you filed your tax returns. And so it's so important, like, for you to not trash all of that stuff until the statute of limitations for the IRS's audit has passed. Now, what we would do in our office is, when an end of the year came, so the end of the calendar year, end of the fiscal year, what we would do is we would box up all of our documents, and then, and we put them in banker boxes, but you can get any kind of box that you want to use in order to store your stuff. Um, but we would get bank boxes, we would label what's on the inside, right? So what's the contents of whatever's in that box. We would put a date, so it would be like January through December 2024, and then we would put a destroy date. So you just add, it would, you have to keep it through 6 years, right? So it's 2024 plus 6, that's 2030. So it would be destroyed January 1st, 2031. That's when you destroy it. And so that just helps you to know, like, when you're storing stuff, when you can then shred it. Okay, so that you're not keeping it forever and ever and you just have all of this stuff. Now, another layer that we did for like organization and for keeping our records was for receipts. Um, uh, so one, when it comes to keeping receipts, a lot of times on the actual receipt, sometimes it's hard to tell what the purchase was, right? Have you ever looked at a receipt and it says like LMNOP and you're like, I have no idea what I bought, but I know it was for the business, or I know it was for this item. I don't know, um, whatever. And so usually what I tell clients to do, and then when I was a director, what I would tell my managers to do is when you have a business receipt, to tape it to like a sheet of paper and then write down the reason why you made those purchases. And that's because when you get audited 2 to 3 years later, you don't remember sometimes why you made the purchase. You just know that it was a business transaction. So I tell them to put why, so that helps us remember why, of course, why we made the purchase, number one. And then two, when it gets sent to the accountant can then determine what the correct category is for that expense, because they now have the reason why it was made. And then this also helps you in audit show, like, hey, I did make this expense, it did come out of the business bank account, and this is why. And then after, we would scan and save a copy of that receipt, because as you know, after several years, the receipt ink washes off. Not washes off, but it rubs off. And then, like a few years later, you can't even tell what was on the receipt in general. And so, it might seem like overkill, but when you get audited and you have a paper file that is no longer good and there's a backup electronic file, you're going to thank yourself that you went through that extra step just to have it and make sure that you're good to go. Okay. And then staying organized throughout the year. I know that for new entrepreneurs, that could be really difficult, because, again, I'm a new entrepreneur just like you. Even though I've been working in accounting for a long time, I'm new in my business just over a year. And so I know you're wearing all the hats, right? You're HR, you're marketing, you're the accountant, you're the bookkeeper, you're the salesperson, you're the merchandising person, you're the person at the warehouse boxing everything up and shipping it out. I mean, you're doing all of the things. And so, what I want to remind you is that what you do, you have responsibilities that are customer facing, and then responsibilities that are non-customer facing, but they affect what you can do for the customer. So all of that administrative work. And so, what I advise clients to do if they don't have a system and process is just to set aside on their calendar, block out time for at least 1 to 2 hours a week, a month, however much you can afford in your schedule, but dedicate some time to actually paying attention to this, so that when tax season comes around, it's not like a huge, like, stressful, like an anxiety attack, because there's so much that you have to do just to get your taxes done, then you're trying to amend. So it's just better to do it little by little throughout the year versus saving up for it at the very end or at the very beginning of the new year. Okay. And then, some other things that you can do as far as best practices and tips for bookkeeping is to, if you're transitioning, say for instance you are, recording all of your transactions on a legal pad or an Excel, and then you're trying to transition into bookkeeping software, what I always advise people to do is to utilize the free trials prior to purchasing a subscription. And the reason being is you want to choose a software that makes sense for you and is easy for you. You also want to choose a software that is specific and good for your industry, right? And that goes the same for like liability insurance. There's certain things that you want to select that actually make sense for the industry and type of business that you have. So like if you have a construction business, they have accounting software that is like tailor made for construction businesses. If you are a law firm, they have law firm accounting software. I mean, they have people that have created software that are industry specific. um, that would be my suggestion, is to utilize the free trial. So if it's a 14-day free trial, and like actually use it. So sign up for the free trial and then go in there and see if you can like break it. See if it's easy for you to find everything. See if it's easy for you to utilize and like sync up everything. If you like how everything is flowing, do that first before you actually purchase a software. And then another thing that I advise people to do is what I'm doing right now is to learn about bookkeeping and accounting principles so that you can understand your own financial statements, you know how to read them. And the reason why that's important, and I'm going to say it again and again, is when you know your financial statements, they help you make better decisions for your business. They help you manage your business better because you understand what's happening with the money in your business. Another reason why it's so important for you to understand your financial statements and know how to read them is because then you can audit the person that you have trusted to take care of your accounting. Okay, and it's not that you so I'm a certified public accountant. It's not that you have to learn everything that I've learned to be a CPA. You have to know the principles so that you can keep that person in check. Right. And when I used to teach, I taught community college classes for a little over 3 years. And so what I used to teach the students, especially the business majors, is because this is like, accounting just is for those who don't like the accounting, don't like math. Like this is such a chore and it's a bore. It's like it's boring and it's tedious and I don't like it. But what I would do is I would pull articles of local businesses within Killeen, Texas, the surrounding area, Waco, Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos, where fraud happened. And it happened. Especially like in the one example that I would use all the time, there was a lumber company, I-95 Lumber Supply, that went out of business. It was a family business. And for over 20 years, this is local here in Killeen, that accountant stole like over $1 million. It was in the news. Just over a 20-year period, little by little, just siphoned money out of the business, and it wasn't found out. And by the time they found out, the owners, they had to close their business down, and they sold that business to another big box lumber company. I think it's Galbraith, that's on I-95 now. And so the reason why I said all that to say is that you need to understand your financial statements so that you can protect your profits, because you're growing your business so that you can financially provide for your family, so that you can create a legacy for your children and your grandchildren. You're going through all of this sacrifice and hardship so that you can build something for whatever God has called you to do, for your family and for the kingdom, for whatever. And so when you're not diligent about checking the person you've hired, whether that's an internal person or an external person, um, that's wh- that's when it's easy for money to go missing and you not know about it, right? So basically, that accountant just gets to eat your lunch, and you don't even know that things are gone. Like the money is gone. They've put themselves on your books as a fake vendor. You don't even review the contracts. You just sign off on the checks. You just let them pay the bills, and then all the while they're just paying themselves out of the business bank account through a fraudulent like vendor account or a fake employee or something like that. And so, with tip number 5, it's so important for you to learn the foundation or the basics of reading financial statements and how your bookkeeping software works, okay? So that you can go in there and check the person that's doing it and make sure that they're doing the right thing by you. Now, if you have a current accountant, a bookkeeper, it could be a CPA, an enrolled agent, or a bookkeeper. And I don't mean like a bookkeeper as if they're less than, because they're not. I was actually trained by bookkeepers and non-CPAs, and so I know that there's a lot of people out there who are not CPAs, not EAs, but they're accountants, and they're absolutely fantastic, intelligent, and competent. Okay, but whoever it is that you've hired to do your books, ask them, even your taxes, ask them to teach you, ask them questions, say, hey, what is this account? Why is it that, why is our income, our net income this amount? Ask them questions and see if they're willing to teach you. I know for my clients and even prospective clients, I have the heart of a teacher. I love teaching, and so I'm always down to teach and educate. I really believe that knowledge is power. And so another thing that you can do in the meanwhile is you can take an introductory bookkeeping course. Now, I know that there's a lot of online courses out there, and what I'm going to suggest is actually to take an online course that has reviews of people actually being successful in learning. Because online courses are not that. There's just like anything else, there's always like the real thing, right? People who really know what they're doing and are really teaching legit stuff, and then there's people that are scamming people out of money and not teaching anything and don't really have anything for you to learn that's worthwhile for the money that you've paid, right? But to vet whatever bookkeeping course that you want to buy, if it's something online, what I would do personally is I would go to a local community college. And that is, I'm giving that recommendation because I used to teach introductory accounting classes at a local community college. When I would get assigned classes, I had to prove on my resume that not only did I have the academic or educational background to teach it, but that I actually had real world experience. And so I know that and the community college I taught at, Central Texas College, was also the college that I got my associate's degree at. And many of what I loved about going to CTC was that my professors, when I was doing my associates there, that my business professors actually owned and ran businesses. And so the information that they gave us was like, this is theory and textbook. This is what happens. This is what you should expect. When you start off, lots of times you're shelling out money and the money doesn't come in for a long time until you can establish, a foundation of customers, a client base. And so I would go to a local community college. It will definitely be cheaper. It should be more reliable, vetted information that you're taking. And then you can apply as a non-degree seeking student and just take that one class. Okay. And then tip number 6 is going to be to interview, vet, and audit the person you're hiring to do your books and taxes. So when you're doing this, I'm going to switch over. These are questions that you should ask when you're hiring an accountant. So, number one is going to revolve around their education and experience. What is it? Do they have experience that aligns with your circumstance as a small business owner? Ask them if they're new. So, like for instance, for me, I've worked as an accountant for almost 11 years. I've been a CPA for since June 2019, so almost 5.5 years. But I'm only been in my business for 1 year. And so there's not a lot of reviews online that you can go and, or I don't think there are any reviews online that you can go and review. So if that's the case, ask them, can I review your resume? Can I call references from your W-2 employers? Or can I call current clients that you might have in order to get a reference? And if they're a licensed professional, make sure that you verify their license. Okay. So if they're an enrolled agent, you actually have to verify their license by emailing the IRS. If they're a CPA, just Google whatever state they're in. So I'm in the state of Texas, so it would be like the Texas State Board of Accountancy. Do a license lookup and you can do it by their name. So if you don't know their license number, just look them up by their name. I have a unique last name. I have a Liberian last name, and so there's actually not very many people with my last name. I'm very easy to find if you just do that. Okay. But verify their license, make sure their license is in good standing. And then also ask them whatever price that they give you, no matter what it is, if it's 150 a month, if it's 1,000 a month, no matter what it is, ask them what services are included in that price, what services are not included in that price. How often can I meet and speak with you if I have questions, right? So this is like customer service and support. I'm paying you to do my books. I'm paying you to do my taxes. But if I have tax questions or business questions, how can I reach out to you when I need help? And then how quickly can I expect you to respond to my inquiries? So those are some questions to ask if you're looking to hire someone. Um, and that's our session for today, bookkeeping best practices and tips. If you have any questions, please comment below. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all of you, and I hope